have an opportunity here to provide leadership, support, and a voice to the voiceless. The sacrifices that we made during our service do not end here. We carry on. We push forward, and we give hope and inspiration through love, community, and support. Stay free.
Rights and freedoms in this country are absolutely everything to me, because I personally know the sacrifice required in order to get them back once they're gone. So when my brothers and sisters call Stand 2, be sure I'll be there.
Legacy media will play their games, right? Like, this isn't about this or that. This is about freedom, period.
The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Brothers and sisters in uniform, whether you're a police officer, military, check your hearts. Look where we're going. Man, wake up. I beg you.
If the veterans can't stand up and get a message across to the government, I don't know who can. I don't know. But we're going to give it our best shot. And I think we have a chance to win this and do it. But we need your help. And we need you to come, and we need you to stand too. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk again soon.
pressed their rubber, sold out to the merchant shelves. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, troops? Jeff Evely, the Magnanimous GenX'er Male, back at you now on this 12th day of February 2023. Got a great show lined up for you, but I don't have Chris Dacey. So Chris is in Ottawa. He's covering some stuff right now. There's a lot going on out there. Just last minute, about an hour, maybe an hour and a half ago, he messaged me and he was like, I got to back out. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and adapt. So I scrambled and put together a new show. And I'll give you the update on Chris before I kind of dive into it here. So we will have that. Everything's fine. It's just he's always where the action is and all that stuff. So I will adapt and overcome. And I think I still have a pretty good show lined up for you guys. So it's going to be great. Also, a little bit of house cleaning. I had Donald Best lined up for today as well, But over the weekend, he had to reschedule because he's gone on the road. So I deleted the broadcast from my StreamYard account, and it's supposed to take it down from all of the different locations when that happens. But apparently it didn't come down from one of the YouTube channels. So there were some people that were kind of left waiting in the winds. Just over on the YouTube channel there. I got a few messages there. Thanks everybody for checking up on me, by the way. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's what happened. Donald had to reschedule. So I deleted that broadcast. I booked in Chris Dacey because he's always good for a Muckraker Monday. And then Chris had to bail at the last minute. So I guess I'm having a bit of a Monday here, folks, but bear with me. We're going to power through this. All right. Here is our philosophy quote for the day. This is my boy Marcus, and he says, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Yeah, I resemble that remark, actually. When I was first learning about this, about Marcus, and first started reading like the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, The Obstacle is a Way by Ryan Halliday is a good book too. He's a huge Marcus buff, and he does the Daily Stoic, I think, is his podcast. Anyway, I've taken a few different podcasts that are on stoicism. I'm pretty sure his is the Daily Stoic, and he's got a book out there called The Obstacle is the Way. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of like whatever it is that's really kind of weighing on you, you just go right at it, you go right through it, you do it. If you're anxious because of some confrontation that you'd rather avoid, well, maybe confrontation is the way to deal with that. And you just you go at it, you go right through it. And I did a lot of conflict management stuff in my career, just as a senior NCO and stuff like that. And conflict is a really normal part of life, actually. And avoidance is very rarely the proper strategy. A lot of times you can find better ways to tackle it. Collaboration probably being the best, but confrontation is one of them. So whatever it is, obviously I'm always saying we want to respond to an issue as opposed to react emotionally. Respond intelligently, don't react emotionally. But yeah, I mean, if you're really anxious about something, if it's got you really down, then just deal with it, right? So and you'll feel a hell of a lot better. Take on those challenges. Okay, and I did dive into this before I said good evening to everybody. Holy smokes. So I will say good evening, folks. I am kind of juggling my way into this thing, so bear with me. Cup of Joe 1970 over on Rumble says, "Good evening from On Terrible." Click that like. Come on, man. Laughy face. Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate the likes over there. It helps the algorithm, or so I'm told. RJ Sawyer says, "Hi, guys. Great coverage, Chris. Following you on Facebook. You too, Jeff." Thanks, brother. I appreciate you being here. And Messiah 854 says, "Evening, Sergeant Major." Good evening to you, folks. Sorry, Chris is not with us, but it is what it is. We're out there waging ideological warfare, so we got to be adaptable. And Susan is here, says, "Hey, Jeff and Chris, my brothers." Well, it's just me. But thanks for being here as always. And Nick Larcher says, good evening to you. James Bullock says, "Good evening, everyone," giving us the triple slashy. James, thanks for reaching out to me, bro. Rob says, "Good evening, Patriots and Vegas," and giving us the triple slashy. Good evening to you. Janet says, "Hello, Jeff and friends." Hello to you. And Brian says, "Blessings from Unterrible." It is indeed. And it's too bad there's no motorcycle riding this time of year, because that is the only redeeming quality. You'd have to go to Tremblant, really, to find the bright side in that, I think. Okay. And Carrie says, "Afternoon all." Janet says, "Share." Thank you for the top cover. Please, guys, share this out. I'm not even sure if I did that kind of coming into this here, but Cindy says, "Good evening, Jeff. Hello, friends." And she's giving us the victory, everybody. It's not peace, it's victory. And that's what we're after here. Marion says, "Hello, Jeff and friends." Hello to you. And we got Dave here saying, "Good evening, all." And Andrew says, "Good evening, Jeff and Dags." All right. And Darlene is with us as always, saying, "Good evening, everyone tuning in from New Brunswick." Triple hearts shared out. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the top cover. And share, guys. Tuning in from Saskatchewan. Special appreciation to the Westerners. Although I am used to saying that in the morning. This isn't that early for you guys out there. So thanks for being on board. All right, guys. I am going to dive into it. I gave you the meme. And I changed the view here. Hang on. All right. I gave you the meme, and I gave you the philosophy quote. "The obstacle is the way." We're going to power through this like we always do. And here is our meme for the day. "Bill Cosby joins Hamas, so feminists will stop condemning him for rape." And he's wearing his Hamas headband here. Yeah. And if this sounds distasteful to you, then you probably didn't really track the Bill Cosby case that much. A lot of it was just hype. And a lot of old school feminists. He was kind of the original Me Too guy. in my assessment. Of course, there were a lot of people who got on that bandwagon, but that still is a bandwagon. And if you dive into the details about the trial, like there were certain people who were allowed to testify as witnesses who never should have been there because they were ruled out as ever having been in the same time and space as Bill Cosby, like at the Playboy Mansion. I think that was actually the first allegation to come forward when the cops investigated. They found out that, you know, this person who had accused him, yeah, okay, they were at the Playboy Mansion, but at that time, at that party that they were able to pin down the date on, he was in New York. So all kinds of stuff like that. But, you know, the media had a field day with it, and looks like they probably put a good man in jail. But anyway, he's joining Hamas now, so feminists will stop condemning him for rape. Okay, here is Chris Dacey. I went and dug up the last few tweets that he has out there. He's all over what's everything that's going on there in Ottawa. So here is the update.
Dacey here, Parliament Hill behind me, the Prime Minister's office, and Justin Trudeau inside. A lot of bylaw, and behind me, Ottawa police. Trudeau is in the office, and there is a social media post that say there seems to be an anti-Israel protest of some sort, a last-minute protest at the Prime Minister's office starting at 4:30. So that should be any minute. Quite a bylaw and police presence starting to form around the Prime Minister. So, and his details there, so he's inside, I guess. See what happens.
So there's Chris coming at us,
Dacey.
letting us know what's going on, where all the action is there in Ottawa. And here he is catching Trudeau as he arrives.
That's Justin Trudeau's security detail.
Yeah, somebody should have got him called for a ceasefire, but I'm pretty sure we already voted that at the UN. I mean, the UN did vote for a ceasefire, but it was just like lip service, right? Like they were calling for a ceasefire, but also a return of the hostages and for Hamas to stand down, which is the purpose of the whole military incursion in the first place. All right, and just so you know what's going on over there, what's really happening over there, because this is one of those things where it might be more divisive than COVID. There's just so much disinformation out there on this thing. And hello, Fold on X is saying, I was going to write, quote, I am not sure if I've seen a video that better depicts how sick the Palestinian ideology is, close quote, but I have. We all have. This video, though, is beyond twisted. My favorite part, the high five. Okay, check this out. Okay, I'll give you the translation. As you can see, this is a grown man. He's holding up a toddler boy. Grown man is holding a Palestinian flag, and the little boy is as well, a smaller version. And for those of you just listening, he says, here is the little boy. Shoot him. You know how already. And he's yelling at, there's a roadblock here with some IDF soldiers in the road. And this man is holding up this little boy, yelling at the IDF soldiers to shoot the little boy. Go on. Yes, go. Go over there. He's telling the little boy to go over there. Shoot him. Shoot him. Go over there. Don't be afraid. Go over there. Let them shoot you. Let them kill you. Raise the flag. Let them shoot you. Raise it. Raise it. Raise the flag so they will shoot you. Let them kill you. And the IDF soldier, he puts out his hand, and he gets, it's not a high five, it's a low five from the little boy. And then he shakes his hand. Shoot him. Shoot him. You know how to do these things. You're also good at killing little children. Should I also bring my little girl? And they're just standing there. Weapons are down. And now he says, pick up a rock. Throw a rock at him. Don't be afraid. Throw it. So little boy picks up a rock. He throws it in the wrong direction. Picks up another one. There he is throwing another rock. Of course, it's not really getting anywhere near because this is essentially a baby. Small toddler. Looks to be about 3 or 4. And he's just throwing rocks off to the side while the IDF just lean on the truck there. He's waving his flag at them. They're just kind of leaning on the truck, chilling. And then the boy has a little seat on the rock. He's chilling. So there you go. Yeah. And I get the comments here. Like Colleen is saying, oh my God. Cindy is saying sickening mental cases. Marion, just so sick, so sad. And yeah, this is what I have been showing here since the very beginning. I've been tracking this issue for a lot of years, and this tactic of Hamas and even supporters that are civilians they call themselves Palestinians in Gaza will use their own children as human shields, as cannon fodder. They want to maximize the number of civilian casualties so they can use their bodies to get the propaganda win and say, look at these baby killers. Look at what baby killers the IDF are. And they'll call it a genocide and all that stuff, but it's all gaslighting. It's all a bunch of BS. They're not in there trying to wipe everybody out. I've shown the statistics here by Hamas's own numbers. Bomb for bomb, which is the proper way to measure it. The number of civilian casualties is about 1/6 the global average for the 21st century. So probably it doesn't get any better than that, I'm afraid. It's a war. It's rotten. It's terrible. There are always going to be civilian casualties, but I don't know that there's a military at any point in history that has done a better job of mitigating civilian casualties. But what Hamas, and that's with Hamas still doing everything they can to maximize civilian casualties. They will shoot at their own people to keep them from leaving areas. There was some footage, like I saw, that was circulating maybe a couple of weeks ago, where people were saying, look at the IDF snipers taking out these people waving the white flag. But that was from actually much earlier in the conflict, when the IDF told people that they would provide them safe passage through a corridor to the south, evacuate the north so they can go in, destroy Hamas, and just wave the white flag, and we'll protect you. And Hamas still fired rockets at the safe corridor to try to kill their own people to maximize those civilian casualties. So that is the state of affairs over there, the true state of affairs. And the progressives have banded together because they all hate the West. So speaking of hating the West, here is Visegrad24. Hamas member says that for Islamists like her, fighting for Palestine isn't the end goal. The end goal is to spread Islam across the world. Yes, global Sharia. That is what they're after. The jihadi types, that is. There are moderate Muslims, clearly. I know them. I work with them. I have worked with them overseas. There are reformers and moderates whom we need to empower. Majid Nawaz in the UK, I think, is probably the best prospect for a Luther in Islam, which is what's needed, a reformer like Luther. We have our own, like Rahel Reza here in Canada. So they are out there, but far too many think like this. So here she is. Oh, translation. I must add that we don't only fight against occupation. Our goal is to spread Islam to all, everywhere. Okay, and we got some footage of the armed, fighters. I must add that we don't only fight against occupation. Oh, sorry. I think this is looping around. It's a very short clip. Our goal is to spread Islam everywhere. Yeah, it's global Sharia. And that is, if you take a literal reading of the Quran, then it's not hard to come to that conclusion. That's for sure. Okay, and here is Cat Canada. I demand reparations. Okay, so if you don't believe me, here we go.
Given white women have never had to deal with racial and colonial oppression, it is not surprising.
Really? Have white women never experienced racial or colonial oppression? It's time for a history lesson. In the 7th century, when the non-white Arabs burst out of the peninsula beginning the Islamic conquests, one of the ways their leaders motivated people to join the jihad was to promise them the opportunity to enslave the enemy. Islamic conquest of Spain, one Spanish historian highlights how the Umayyads particularly valued blonde or red-haired, Franco-Galician women who they could take as sex slaves. As the Indian writer M.A. Khan describes, there was huge demand in the Islamic world for white women, where they were kept as concubines in harems, existing only for the pleasure of their Muslim masters. And Khan also points out that the Muslim world's unceasing demand for white slaves continued for centuries. As almost 1,000 years later, the Barbary pirates from North Africa were kidnapping white Christian women and selling them in slave markets where they were hugely valuable to become concubines in the harems, just like before. And why not ask white Christian mothers living in the Ottoman Empire about colonial oppression? Greeks, Romanians, Bulgarians, Serbians, Croats all had their boys ripped from their mothers' arms in a system called devshirme, where the Ottomans would steal Christian children in order to recruit them into their elite corps of soldiers.
I demand reparations.
Well done, Cat Canada. Yeah, and if you read up on that a little bit, like the conquest, this went on for 1,000 years, right up until, well, almost 1,000 years. It's been going on since the 7th century now, so over 1,000 years, a good 1,400. But like Spain even changed hands a couple of times. And I think it was the same year that Columbus set sail that the Christians retook Spain. They drove the Muslims out of Spain and they set sail because it's like do or die. We need to build an empire. We need to be strong. Otherwise, we're going to fall under the boot of Islam. So, and here's the Toronto Sun. Charges against one man dropped following Eaton Centre protest. Everybody remembers this guy, the guy that said, I'll put you 6 feet deep, right in front of a cop there. He was apparently addressing that to a pro-Israel demonstrator, but uttering death threats is a criminal code offense in Canada. He wasn't arrested, and then he was arrested, and now he has had his charges dropped. So here we go. All charges against one of the men arrested following a high-profile incident during a demonstration in the Toronto Eaton Centre have been dropped. Toronto police responded on December 17th at about 4:55 p.m. to the area of Yonge and Shutter Streets, where it's alleged that two men were participating in an anti-Israel protest at the downtown mall. At the time, police alleged the men were blocking the entrance to a store and preventing employees from closing. Police alleged both men pushed security and were trying to gain entry into the store. Cops were trying to remove protesters from the area when one of the men allegedly pushed an officer, while the other man allegedly used an umbrella to strike an officer. The demonstrators banged on the store shutters and yelled at store employees and officers. Cops claimed at the time one man then allegedly made a verbal threat toward an individual in the mall. Amru Saeed Ahmoud Abu Farik, 19, of Toronto, was arrested and charged with unlawful assembly, member of an unlawful assembly while masked, mischief, interfere with property, assault a peace officer, and uttering threats. On Friday, Ahmed Saeed Abu Farik, 31, of Toronto, was arrested and charged with unlawful assembly, mischief, interference with property, and assault a peace officer with a weapon. Also on Friday, police said all charges against Melid Saeed Abu Farik, 34, were dropped. He had been charged with unlawful assembly, mischief, interference with property, and assault a peace officer. Anyone with information is asked to call police, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So looks like one of them got out anyway. One of them has had all charges dropped, but a couple of them are still in custody. And here's Italy, just in case you guys haven't been following what's going on over there in Europe. I mean, I have, and I've been showing it, so I'm pretty sure everybody's a little bit familiar, but this just happened. So if you're just listening, the guy who is walking through the streets ranting is carrying a machete. And Ron English is the guy tweeting this, and he says, Italy, North African Muslim walks down the street with a machete. He had just dismembered two people. This is the new normal. Yeah, I'm afraid so. And it's been going on for a while over in Europe since the 2015 migrant crisis. And here's Ian Miles Chong. So this is also Italy. And he says, a 13-year-old girl in Villa Bellini in Catania, Italy, was dragged into a public bathroom and gang raped by 7 Egyptian migrants who also beat up her teenage boyfriend and forced him to watch helplessly as they violated her. Fortunately, she was able to identify a couple of the assailants to the Carabineria And during interrogation, one of the perpetrators gave up all his accomplices, leading to their arrests. The Italian right wing is now calling for the assailants to be castrated and deported. Would that be a fitting sentence? Yeah, that sounds good. You know what? Castrate them and send them back to send a message. That's the only thing these people understand, I'm afraid. So here's CTV News' take on it. And they say an alleged gang rape shocks Italy and provides fodder for an ascendant far right. So as you can see, it's not the sadistic gang rape of a teenage girl while forcing her boyfriend to watch that CTV is primarily concerned with. It's unending power for the left. That's it. And I'm not even going to read that article. Just despicable. Okay. And here we have the National Council of Canadian Muslims, formerly CARICAN. They changed the name because everybody got hip to CARICAN as being a Muslim Brotherhood affiliate. And now they're they're NCCM. And they say, we are encouraged that the city of Brampton and Mayor Patrick Brown have taken the step to appoint senior advisor to combat Islamophobia to address the spike in anti-Muslim hate across this country. Brampton has shown real leadership in becoming the first municipality after the City of London in Canada to implement one of NCCM's key recommendations following the January 29th Quebec City mosque attack. We look forward to working with Mr. Mushin Kirmali and the city to advance measures to combat the ongoing threat of violent systemic Islamophobia. Now, they did the same damn thing there a few weeks ago when we had the Edmonton City Hall shooter. Now, fortunately, nobody was harmed in that attack, but he did go in there with a rifle and Molotov cocktails. And he did leave a video manifesto where he pretty clearly identified as a jihadi for all intents and purposes. And they came out and they were like, oh, it's the right wing, because he mentioned certain policies like the homelessness crisis, which I think we all understand is being forced on us due to mass immigration. And he talked about a couple other things, and they were like, oh, look at these right-wing talking points coming from this guy. And he was like, assalamu alaikum, before he even signed off. So just unbelievable gaslighting. But here is the video.
The consequence of misinformation, the consequence of hate, if you allow that environment to exist, it results in violence. And that's why during this day of remembrance, it's also about committing to make sure we combat hate with purpose and determination. Part of our motion 3 years ago to adopt all of NCCM's recommendations was a commitment to have someone within City Hall to be our Islamophobia representative, to work with the community. And I'm pleased to officially recognize for the first time, I know he was on Parliament Hill yesterday as part of NCCM's presentations, but for the first time in the city of Brampton, welcome Musin Kirmali to our equity office as our official representative to combat Islamophobia.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be with you all. I know together we can try to make our city and workplace a more inclusive one, where we celebrate and champion our wonderful diversity. In my recent past, I have directly seen the wide impact of what hate can do to the mental state and well-being of people and communities. I'll do my best to work alongside each and every one of you in the coming weeks and months, inshallah, where we can carve out a path forward and make lasting change to better our sense of belonging within the city and the corporation. Thank you all for giving us hope for a better future. Please do remember those lives today and the victims of such tragedies in the past with a prayer tonight. Remember that your actions and your prayers have a big ripple effect on many that you may never see.
All right. Standing with our Muslim communities, it says, National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque attack and action against Islamophobia. Hey, do we got a National Day of Remembrance for, say, Corporal Nathan Cirillo? That was the first ISIS attack on for ISIS, then just go out and do these attacks, and then that's what they do. Colleen was just saying, which is exactly why they are bringing him here. Yes, it's for more attacks. It's a key feature of the plan. It's not a bug. It's a key feature, I say, because it's part of the destabilization agenda. We'll be too busy trying to clean up this mess to see that invisible hand that's really guiding it all, and I'll get to that here shortly. Okay, now here's a sensitive video, and this is Zafar Heretic, and he says, Muslim girl child beheads a doll, proclaims to kafirs, which is what they call non-Muslims, as in infidel, quote, my sword has been sharpened to destroy you, close quote. How can we coexist and be at peace with this ideology? Well, that's a great question. There is a need for reform. And this is the girl's voice you're hearing. If you're watching, you can see that she's wearing a niqab, but this is a child. You can tell by the voice.
تكون المعارك لأجل دمارك وسام البراء مشينا بسمر لجز ونحر بسكين ثأر سمت من حرى بأشباح ليل وفتيان هون
There you go. So she beheads the baby doll, for those of you who are just listening, and says, Allahu Akbar. So I guess all that stuff about Hamas beheading babies was just a bunch of Zionist propaganda after all. Okay, and here is our government and how they're handling this. This is Melanie Jolie. And Judy Trin is tweeting out, Foreign Minister Melanie Jolie announces that Canada will sanction Hamas today after attacking Israel on October 7th. More details to come. Now, this just came out on February 6th. The massacre was on October 7th. And they're just coming out now to say that they're going to sanction Hamas. And somebody was mentioned, I was just muted. Guys, I have some gremlins with my system. I got to sort this out, I know. But I'm not sure what the heck is going on. I did a restart. I just rebooted everything before I started, but bear with me, I guess. I'll power through as usual. Okay, so here is the awful Melanie.
Today is the 4th month since the October 7 terrorist attacks. We will be sanctioning Hamas leaders and Islamic Jihad leaders today. I'll have more to say later in the afternoon, but let me be clear, Hamas is a terrorist organization and they will be held accountable for their terrorism. Today is the 4th.
Yeah, so 4 months later, they're finally going to sanction Hamas after funding them for all these years, especially through the UN. As I was showing before, the UNRWA schools seem to have been a focal point in all of this. And Carolyn is just saying the children are so indoctrinated, the hate starts at home. Yes, it does. That is really the whole issue across the board, indoctrination, the kind of brainwashing that they see. And, you know, the answer is philosophy. That's my take anyway, is we need to teach philosophy in schools. We don't teach critical thinking in schools. We don't teach people how to think. We just tell them what to think. And that is not education. That is indoctrination. So here is Melanie Jolie again, and she says, we are deeply concerned by reports of an Israeli military operation in Rafah. It would have a devastating impact, putting the lives of Palestinians and foreign nationals, including Canadians, seeking refuge in grave danger and making the vital delivery of humanitarian aid dangerous. And she continues, we continue to call for the protection of civilians, for the release of hostages, for urgent efforts towards sustainable ceasefire, and for increased humanitarian aid. I mean, I don't know what the hell she's even asking for there. Like, specifically, what is it you want them to do? I don't know. Give the hostages back and surrender. That's the answer. Hamas can do that, but they're not going to. So Israel is just going to continue. I mean, I think they've had enough of this stuff. It's been decades. I can't say that I blame them. So it is what it is. And these people just pay this lip service like they're not serious people, and this is after we've already funneled millions off to Hamas, but they're unrepentant and as vapid as ever. So, and here is what actually happened in Rafah. They went in there and they rescued a couple of hostages. So here they are. This is Marina Medvin, and she's tweeting the 2 rescued Israeli hostages meeting their families.
Okay, let's set it on his mouth. Bye-bye.
There you go. So they got a couple of them back anyway. It's there's still a long way to go. I'm not sure how many are still there, but it's almost all of them. And here is Avi Yamini. He's Rebel News, and he says, why do quote unquote journalists keep dying in Gaza? Because they're terrorists. For example, check out Mohammed Wisha, who works for Al Jazeera in the morning and Hamas in the afternoon. The UN and AJ should be deemed terrorist organizations like Hamas. It's the same people. That is also true. This is another thing that I've been highlighting. So here he is. He's got his press gear on, and he's reporting for Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera being the CBC of the Middle East. They're the propaganda wing of the Qatari government. And yeah, they do some real news to kind of cover their asses like all propaganda outlets do. But when it's time to do something for the Qatari government, they just do it. And Qatari is the government that is providing safe haven for the leaders of Hamas, who are not being harmed in any of this, using these civilians as human shields and cannon fodder. They're billionaires living the high life in Qatar. So. And here is the same guy, and check him out. He's off here doing some training with some RPGs and the like. So, yeah, that's what's going on over there. It's a pretty sad state of affairs, and it's not something we're used to dealing with. They're not fighting fair. They're not fighting conventionally. And I've pointed out some things, like there are justifications, certain principles in Islam, like taqiyya is a widely recognized principle. It's deception, as in religious deception for the purpose of furthering the cause of jihad, to bring the world under Sharia. So this is what it looks like. And I know it's really hard to discern what's true and what's not. But if you just kind of accept that they believe what they're telling us they believe, then you can make sense of it. And I first kind of adopted that position when it was the suicide bombings in like the second Intifada back in the late 2000s there. Because they would leave video manifestos, and you can't understand why they're doing it. We can't, the Western mind can't, but they tell you why. They tell you, it's to further the cause of jihad, and because martyrdom is a core value in that ideology, that they're the ones who get fast tracked to paradise and get to pick all their favorite people to go with them. So, and they're jubilant in these videos. Like they're not at all, forlorn like you might expect that they are. It doesn't have anything to do with depression or despair. They're quite jubilant. It's a spiritual experience for them. So, yeah, that's what we're up against. It's ideology again, indoctrination. So, and Jotam Confino is saying, breaking: Israeli army and journalists reveal Hamas tunnel under UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. Tunnel is 18 meters deep and 700 meters long. Israel says it found weapons, explosive, and traces of Hamas activity in the UNRWA HQ, which provided electricity to tunnel. Also says entire HQ was cleared of surveillance cameras and hard drives in an attempt to cover up further damning evidence. Will UNRWA respond to this? So this is where your UN funding is going. Here's a handful of videos that he's got posted up here. They're just a couple of minutes each. I think I'll show as much as I can. So if you're just listening, it's just there's no sound, but there's the Al Azra University in Gaza. UNRWA's Al Rimal School is here. UNRWA's main headquarters is here, and they've got this tunnel that comes all the way along, connecting UNRWA's Al Rimal School, comes down towards the area of the main headquarters. So, And they're showing footage of the terror tunnel that was discovered underneath UNRWA's Al Rimal school. I was showing some of this footage previously where they were just coming upon the entrances to these tunnels. There's the tunnel opening. There's the guys going inside to the tunnel, the IDF. You can see like there's tons of communication cables and stuff like that are just strapped up to the concrete walls. See, they've got these, looks like some kind of a control panel, a relay panel there. So these are high-tech tunnels. This is where our funding has gone, like the foreign aid, right? And they could have turned Gaza into like a beach resort if they wanted to. Here's the electrical room. Big power bank of batteries there. Looks like a couple more control panels, electrical control panels. This is high tech. This is good gear. Footage showing the location of a tunnel underneath UNRWA's main headquarters. Exit a hole drilled in the tunnel shaft located underneath UNRWA compound. There you go. That's where you come out, right by the UNRWA compound. Yeah, server cabinets. It's all there. Wired better than my place. UNRWA's main. Infrastructure in the server room of UNRWA's main headquarters connected to the intelligence and communications assets in the tunnel. Server room, which constitutes a Hamas intelligence asset located in the tunnel. Serious military operations going on here. I mean, they're not really a serious military, but you can see what they've been up to. UNRWA HQ Gaza. UNRWA headquarters Gaza. Look at that. The UN symbol right there in the building. Yep. So the guys making their way through the area. Here they are going into the administrative building. UN. This is the United Nations administrative building. Says we are inside UNRWA's central headquarters in the Gaza Strip. We can see how, in practice, UNRWA allows Hamas to use its infrastructure. I want to show you some things inside. A room that was turned into a room for Hamas. Here you can see explosives. Alongside them, vests, communications devices, which can be seen. When he says vests, I'm not sure if he means tac vests or suicide bomber vests. Probably one of the two. Different explosive materials. Explosive systems, explosive vests. There you go. Explosives and operating system uniforms and combat equipment. Communication devices. One more interesting point. This facility is supposed to be used by the operations room. UNRWA cut off all the recording devices and its communication systems. Right. In order to leave, not to leave even a single trace of use that allows Hamas to make of its infrastructure. All the DVRs, they're just disconnected, everything. They even remove the signs, so we can't identify them and we can't know. Inside the closet is a bag with ready-to-use grenades and another magazine. Unfortunately, this is what UNRWA allows Hamas to do in its infrastructure and facilities. Yep. Schools.
אז אנחנו נכנסים עכשיו למנהרה הגדולה הזאת.
Okay, that's not even a good translation for me. But you get the idea here, guys. This is what's going on over there. They've just turned all of northern Gaza into a military base with tunnels all over the place. They're using UN funding. They're using our foreign aid to build these terror tunnels. They probably had everything to do with how they were able to infiltrate on October 7th. Who knows? They might have actually gotten under the fence somehow that way. Could be. But I mean, we know how a lot of them got over. Like, they had bulldozers going at the fence. They had the paragliders were another thing, and paragliders move slowly, so they wouldn't have been picked up by the radar system of Iron Dome, that kind of thing. So anyway, this is what they and like I say, they could have turned this place into a beach resort. They have their own water aquifer. They have everything. They could have given their people prosperity and security and safety, education, but they didn't do that because all they really care about is killing the Jews. All right, and here's what's going on at the southern border down in the U.S. So Thomas Greenberg is tweeting, refugees getting paid before coming here straight from the sheriff's mouth. So this guy has been putting some tweets out there, or TikToks, I guess. So pretty good. Here is sheriff from the southern U.S.
About a month ago, I put out a video saying that when many of these illegals are getting processed for people claiming asylum, they're getting a cell phone, they're getting a plane ticket across this country, and then even getting gift cards. Some of them even getting cash. Well, the media went to work really fast to try to debunk me and say that I was putting out false information. Verify said it was false information. Well, this is just one of the reports we've seen recently. Now the UN is saying that they were handing out up to $1.6 billion through NGOs to illegal immigrants for things like gift cards and cash. Gift cards like this. We find these all over on the other side of the border and on our side of the border. And we find them with the folks that we pull over and stop that have come into this country illegally. So once again, I'm here to remind you that the information that the mainstream media feeds you is what's false.
Well said, sir. And Sharon was just saying, I do not support anybody with the UN before their name. Corruption and liars. Yeah. And as you can see, like this guy is pointing to the UN as well, in terms of the source of the border crisis in the US. And Joe Biden is clearly a compromised, well, I mean, if he's even there, he's a compromised president very clearly. So we can see that the UN is definitely the common point, but I don't think it stops there. And here is I meme, therefore I am. Very alarming. Ohio Sheriff Richard K. Jones ends warning the American people after meeting with the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray. Quote, I'll just let him speak for himself. Now, this is a little bit long. I'll just play a few minutes.
My name is Rick Jones. I'm the Butler County Sheriff, Butler County, Ohio. I just came back from the National Sheriff's Training in D.C. 2 days ago. We were briefed by the FBI director, Ray, the director of the FBI, and several federal agencies. There's 3,300 sheriffs in the United States.
Corey, you're late. Thanks for being with us, but drop and give me 10.
The President of the United States refuses to meet with the sheriffs, the 3,300. We have a hierarchy. We have a president. We have a vice president. The President of the United States refuses to meet with the sheriffs. He also refuses to meet with the police chiefs of the United States. They have a hierarchy also. He refuses to meet with them to talk about border issues or talk about crime that's going on because of the border issue. We were also told by Mr. Ray, the FBI director, that there are more red flags going off now than before 9/11. Okay?
So there you go. That's what I mean when I say it's part of the destabilization agenda. It's a key feature. It's not just a feature, but a key feature. It's not a bug, not whatsoever. They're bringing in all kinds of terrorists. I've shown, known terrorists being identified at the border. They were just allowed to walk across. And it's not just the jihadis, but I mean, the Chinese are coming, fighting age males. So all kinds of stuff going on there. And traces its way back to the UN. Rob is pointing out it's a combination of the UN and the WEF. Yes, I believe that as well. And I think you guys, the regulars, will know why I think that, but we're getting to it here soon. Here we go. We're getting into the real meat of it here. So here's the Globe and Fail. And of course, Boomer Male at the Globe and Fail can never have enough money. So it's not enough that he's got his hand in my pocket and those state guns in my face, but he also wants me to buy a subscription and he can shove it. This is the title of the Globe and Fail article. It says, BC Senator Wan Pao Wu challenges reports suggesting China targeted MPs. Yeah, and I don't call him Joe Beijing Biden for nothing, by the way. He was using his son as a bag boy to launder money through Ukraine to rich Chinese oligarchs. And as far as I can tell, that's the whole purpose of Ukraine. It's to take our money, launder it to Ukraine, probably funnel it off to China to fill their war chest. And I mean, we saw what happened during the pandemic. Everybody at the WHO was saying, "Oh, China had the right approach to the pandemic. Everybody be like China." And what does Dr. Evil Klaus Schwab say at the WEF? He calls Xi Jinping His Excellency. He brings the premier of the CCP to the WEF for a conference on quote unquote rebuilding global trust. Since when have we ever trusted the Chinese? Since never. I mean, since the Tiananmen Square massacre? No. Since they released the virus from a lab in Wuhan? No. It seems to me like the UN, the WEF, these international bodies are effectively co-opted as part of China's elite capture strategy. They have our elites, Trudeau pretty clearly, as well as Joe Beijing Biden pretty clearly captured. And the strategy is, well, it's the art of war, right? They're going to win this war without even firing a shot. They just destabilize our countries from within. And the mass immigration is a part of that, and especially mass immigration from countries who hate us. So that seems to be what's happening. And here's Andy Lee, and she says Sam Cooper has details on this meeting. Days before submitting to the Foreign Interference Commission that federal reports on election interference and WeChat disinformation are problematic, Senator Wu, who met with leaders involved with Beijing's overseas Chinese espionage arm. Yeah, so here is the article. This is on Substack. Sam Cooper, of course, is the guy who broke the story on the Chinese interference. And it was Victor O and I think Wampao Wu. It was like a joint effort between these two clearly CCP asset senators of ours to set up a legal fund so that they could sue any journalists who smear Chinese in the media. And they did that whole demonstration on Parliament Hill there, commemorating 100 years since the Chinese Exclusion Act and all this stuff. So it's all this gaslighting and crap, like, the West is evil and we should be ashamed of ourselves. And we just stop believing in ourselves and give up while they destroy our countries from within, and they'll have us conquered without firing a shot. Okay, so title is Canadian Senator who met with leaders affiliated with the PRC espionage arm days before filing challenge to Foreign Interference Commission. On February 3rd, Senator Wampao Wu met with community leaders reportedly subject to Chinese Overseas Affairs Office. 3 days before submitting to the Foreign Interference Commission that federal reports on election interference and WeChat disinformation are quote-unquote problematic, Senator Wampao Wu met in Vancouver with community leaders involved in Beijing's quote-unquote overseas Chinese espionage arm, giving a speech suggesting that a foreign agent registry will lead to an anti-Asian exclusion. The February 3rd, 2024 meeting at Vancouver's Chinese-Canadian Museum was arranged by Senator Wu and Victor O and also attended by Ottawa Liberal MP Chandra Arya, according to event accounts posted to WeChat, a social media platform linked to the government. The Canadian government reports to China's disinformation attacks against Conservative MPs in the 2021 federal election. The Canadian politicians that attended the early February meeting in Vancouver were also involved last year in a petition against a proposed foreign agent registry, which was initiated by a pro-Beijing media entity that also attended the February 3rd, 2024 meeting. As the Bureau reported in December, based on leaked audio in May 2020, Senator Wu privately pledged to a group of Vancouver community leaders with direct ties to Beijing's United Front that Wu would fight to protect their voices in Canadian democracy. And United Front is the Chinese overseas, the CCP's overseas arm, basically. They're very significant in all of this. By meeting this same group of pro-Beijing community and media leaders in Vancouver on February 3rd, 2024, and discussing similar matters, Wu's political activities appear to form a pattern. According to a WeChat report on political speeches at the February 3rd event in Vancouver, Senator Wu said Chinese Canadians are, quote, now in a very dangerous period, close quote, and media reports regarding China's foreign interference are discriminatory. Yeah, this is nonsense. Quote, they're still trying to tag us, close quote, the senator reportedly said. Quote, have to fight back and teach our generation to fight back, close quote. He means leveraging the Chinese diaspora to do the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party. And bear in mind, of course, that a lot of people who live here, a lot of Chinese people, would have been fleeing communism to come here, and now it has followed them here. So when we do have allies, of course, there are people that are helping Andy Lee. Found in Translation is a really good account to follow on X. They're always giving translations of the stuff that's going on WeChat, which is pretty clearly a foreign influence operation and should probably be banned. The comments could not be independently verified, but are consistent with Wu's previous statements. Fair enough. In Senate debate, Wu and O have also denied reports that Beijing used WeChat to smear conservative MPs who took a critical line on China's hostile activities. According to a WeChat report on Area's speech at the February 3rd event, the Liberal MP said Chinese Canadians face danger from a foreign agent registry bill and, quote, without strict regulations, the Chinese community is vulnerable to harassment by security agencies, close quote. Yeah, that's the problem. While there is no evidence of covert influence, ironically, elements of Wu's submission to Commissioner Mary Jose Hogue on February 6th deal with similar talking points from the February 3rd meeting in Vancouver and political arguments promoted by the pro-Beijing media entities in attendance at this meeting, which in itself could be an example of WeChat amplified propaganda meant to discredit Canadian intelligence agencies, discourage criticism of Beijing, and cause fear in Chinese immigrants regarding Canadian anti-interference laws. Yeah, so this is the same gaslighting tactic that we kind of see from all the authoritarians, where they're always accusing us of what they themselves are guilty. Like, we're not the racists. The Chinese are the most racist people on earth. I showed the laundry detergent commercial here where the Chinese woman puts a black guy in a washing machine and he comes out Chinese. Like, they are like chef's kissed, perfect racist. They are an ethno-supremacist state. They're ethno-nationalist, ethno-supremacist, and they accuse us of things like, there's a Chinese Exclusion Act 100 years ago, and there were the Japanese internment camps during the Second World War. Very few people understand, though, that the internment camps also existed in the United States, and they were all predicated on an incident in the wake of Pearl Harbor, where a Japanese pilot was shot down, and an American-born, ethnically Japanese man came to his rescue, basically, and then they both decided to claim the Hawaiian island for the Japanese Empire, and they took up arms against the United States. And then it's like, whoa, what the heck is going on here? Like, how many people are actually loyal to the Japanese Empire? So this gets to be very sticky and ugly, but it's a matter of survival. Quote, I offer my analysts of foreign interference claims related to Mr. Aaron O'Toole and Mr. Kenny Chiu, close quote. Wo's February 6th admission said, quote, as presented in two redacted top secret security intelligence threats to Elections Task Force, brackets CITE, documents that were made available to commission participants, close quote. Quote, it is my assessment that the conclusions reached in these two documents are problematic and that to accept the O'Toole-Chiu incidents as authentic cases of foreign interference and disinformation would be harmful to affected citizens and to Canadian democracy more broadly, close quote, Wu writes. Wu points out a, quote, redacted CITE document entitled Threats to Canadian Federal Election 2021, dated 17 September 2021, close quote. Quote, this document reported that the People's Republic of China sought to clandestinely and deceptively influence Canada's 2021 federal election and provided the following example, close quote, Wu's submission says. The December 2021 document filed as evidence for Hogue says, CITE, quote, observed online/media activities aimed at discouraging Canadians, particularly of Chinese heritage, from supporting the Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, Aaron O'Toole, and in particular, former Stevenson-Richmond East candidate Kenny Chiu. While we did not have clear evidence that this online activity was a PRC-directed FI campaign, foreign interference campaign, we have observed indicators of potential coordination between various Canada-based Chinese language and news outlets, as well as PRC and CCP news outlets. Saiti identified numerous articles posted and shared among PRC and Canada-based Chinese language news website and WeChat news accounts containing false claims about former CPC candidate for Stevenson Richmond, East Kenny Chu, and his private members bill C-282, an act to establish a foreign agent registry. The articles claim that if elected, Chu would pass a, quote, Foreign Power Registry Act, close quote, that would designate, quote, any individual or group connected with China as a spokesperson of the Chinese government, close quote. But according to Wu, this finding was problematic because Canadian intelligence has not provided Beijing has not proved Beijing coordinated these media messages against O'Toole and Chu, which Wu suggested were fair commentary. Well, prove is a strong word. We're dealing with intelligence, not really evidence, as in legal evidence. The burden of proof is not that high. We got to make judgment calls based on limited information when it comes to military operations and foreign threats like this, because like we can't go to court every time we need to defend ourselves. Okay, we just need to be able to make these judgment calls or perish. So, it would just take too long to meet the burden of proof. And they're doing their best to not be found out. Don't forget. That's why it's called clandestine. Quote, some months after the election, the Chinese Canadian Conservative Association called out their leader for what they described as a hatred message towards China in his GE44 campaign, Wu's submission said. Quote, did the association come to this view because of foreign interference? Surely the more plausible explanation is that even conservatives agreed with the assertions made on WeChat, based on independent judgment of their party's election platform and the views expressed by Mr. O'Toole. Meanwhile, photos of the February 3rd, 2024 meeting in Vancouver posted to WeChat show that O and Wu issued awards to purported community leaders, including leader of CACA, an umbrella of about 100 community groups that is directly affiliated to China's Overseas Affairs Office, OCAO. Now, CACA and OCAO are pretty key features in the book, The Mosaic Effect. I'm not all the way through it yet, but very important book. I'm coming to find out. Just reinforces basically everything I've been saying, but it's very detailed. And these community groups, like they're right down the municipal level, okay? They got their tentacles in really deep. They've been at this for a long time. And it goes all the way back to Operation Dragon Lord in the early 90s. That was the Americans telling us, like, you guys need to do something about this. And we never did. So this is where we are right now. Globalist News recently reported on a new Immigration and Refugee Board, IRB, finding that says China's Overseas Affairs Office, quote, was and remains involved in espionage against the PRC's targeted individuals and groups in Canada, close quote. According to Globalist's report, the OCAO is one of the groups Beijing has tasked to eliminate, quote, potential threats and rival discourses, close quote, that challenge the Chinese Communist Party's power. And the IRB report said, quote, the evidence establishes that the key role of the OCAO has been intelligence gathering on dissidents and ethnic minorities external to China, close quote. Leaders of CACA are subject of an RCMP national security investigations into so-called CCP police stations activity in Vancouver, Globalist News reported last year. Citing leaked audio tapes also obtained by the Bureau last year, the Globe and Fail, reported that leaders from CACA and related community groups in Vancouver are vetted by Chinese communist officials. Yes. Also at the February 3rd meeting in Vancouver with O, Wu, and Aria, according to WeChat photos, were several pro-Beijing media figures that attended the May 2020 private meeting with Senator Wu, including BC Premier David Eby's advisor Ding Gu, who United Front affiliated community group reportedly hosted the May 2020 meeting with Wu. And Justin Trudeau goes to like all of these meetings, by the way. Read The Mosaic Effect if you have not already. It's all quite detailed and well done. I'm very impressed and lots of notes to take. Going to be really good for the podcast here coming up in the future. And Cora saying, yes, how dare we not want the dragon to take over our country? That's racist. Exactly. That is the PSYOP, guys. And remember, Vincent Ke was the guy who apparently got some assistance there from the Chinese Communist Party. He was the MPP in Ontario. And when Globalist News asked him about it as he was walking through through Queen's Park or something, he was like, I told you in the email that's racist. You can't ask me that question because I'm Chinese. I ethnically Chinese. That's racist. So that is the tactic. Yeah, it's to silence any criticism of what they're really up to. Same as Islamophobia. Same thing. Okay. So the obstacle is the way. All right. What you do with that is you do what I just did, and you just say something. You mock it. You mock the racism, and you do a racist accent. So that's how you respond to that. Okay, here is White Wabbit Warrior, and he is a fellow veteran, making some really great posts here lately. So I got a couple lined up of him. He says, yesterday it was announced that as of next school year, Ontario will now have mandatory Black history courses for grades 7, 8, and 10. I have questions. If we are going down the DEI path of quote unquote equity, take into consideration current pop stats and our actual history, why aren't we having mandatory Asian History Month, Indigenous History Month, White History Month? Or could we just stop teaching our kids to value someone based on the color of their skin? No, we can't. It's all part of the PSYOP. They're not going to let us do that. Okay. They want to it's like Yuri Bezmenov said. Okay. What they did in the wake of the Second World War is they went into the schools and they gave the kids these communist nudges to turn them against their own society. That was the boomer generation. The boomer generation went back into the institutions, and at the current moment in our history, they are at peak institutional power, pushing all this DEI stuff because they hate the West, because they got brainwashed when they were in elementary school, and they turned our universities into these communist indoctrination factories, and now they're also the school boards. So they're turning them into the same thing. The intersectionalism is a Marxist praxis. It just divides everybody, divides us along every line imaginable and pits us all against each other. That's the whole scheme here. Okay, and he's showing this really cool graphics. So here it is. So is this playing? Yeah, okay. So he's showing the stats. Here we are at 1981, and it's a GIF. Okay, back this up. Come on, Evely, get it together. For those of you just watching, it's good. I know. 1981. Now the blue is white, so 93.3% in 1981, and then you've got 2% Aboriginal, 3.4% Asian, 1% Black, and 1991, 86.9% white. 3.8% Aboriginal, 6.8% Asian, 1.9% Black, and we've got a few others in there, Latin American, mixed, other, whatever. Like, this stuff shouldn't really matter, but it's not that we're racist. Like, look, and here we have the minority populations growing. Now, the Asian is the one that is really growing. And what I found kind of interesting about this is that we have more Asian than Aboriginal, even starting in 1981. We already had more Asian. So that's how racist we are against Asians. They are our largest ethnic minority. And 2001, they're at 9.2%. That's almost triple what we have for Aboriginals. And here we are. 2011, the Asians are at 13%. They are the fastest growing minority. We're so racist against those Asians. And again, that's almost triple what we have for Aboriginals, and the white population is down to 76.7%. It's not really that we're declining, it's that they are growing a hell of a lot faster than we are. And now we are 2021. Asians make up 17.4%. Holy smoke. And Aboriginals. Now they're more than triple the Aboriginals. So, and they're more than triple Blacks. So yeah, we're just so racist against Asians, guys. That's the real problem here. Equity. He's given the definition of equity: the quality of being fair and impartial, equity of treatment. I don't know about all that. I think equity is basically that commie nonsense where, you believe in social justice, which is what Rex Murphy calls incompossible, as in it's not justice, it's something else now. And here's Morgan Freeman. How do we stop racism? Quote, stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. Yeah, that's right. Just stop obsessing over the race. It's really about ideas. It's about common values. Okay, that's what really matters. not a person's skin color. There are, broadly speaking, trends that we can observe that are different from one race to another. Sometimes we can talk about those things in order to address social issues, but it's not the key issue that we should be obsessed over all the time. It is part of the commie psyop. Here's Nigel Farage, and he says, he's tweeting this out, important open letter from senior military figures. So this is the military over there in the UK. Yeah, we got a couple of good comments on that one. Colleen is saying, love Morgan Freeman. Yeah, he's pretty great, man. He has been pretty consistent throughout all of this. And Julie is saying critical thinkers is the true minority. Yeah, you're not kidding there. That is for damn sure. Cup of Joe 1970 is saying, enjoy the decline. At least you didn't get racist. You didn't get called a racist or a homophobe. Stop caring about that. Okay. That's part of the commie psyop. That's got everything to do with putting you on your heels so that you can't criticize the agenda, the true agenda to destabilize the West. So here is Nigel Farage, important open letter from senior military figures. Again, this is the UK military. Dear Secretary of State. Now, these are senior generals, retired generals. They wrote this letter. Veterans for Freedom was tweeting this out. It's pretty great, so I'm going to give it a read. Dear Secretary of State, as retired senior officials of the Crown with experience of senior command, we feel compelled to write to you with a sense of sadness, incredulity, and anger over viewing astonishing evidence of the depth and pervasiveness of the racist and intolerant, quote, diversity, equity, or equality, and inclusivity, close quote, ideology being pushed within Her Majesty's Armed Forces. And I think they mean to say equity. That's the term that they usually use. We see the facts as so they are, as the perpetration of a monumental self-harming and as such a real and present threat to national security that will give aid and comfort to the king's enemies. The sheer scale of what is reported is scarcely believable, and it cannot be ameliorated by small adjustments. It requires root and branch removal, and we call upon you to order this in pursuit of your primary duties to provide for the sure defense of our islands and citizens. Well said. Yes, it is a commie psyop, and they're pushing it in our military, as we know, as we've been reporting on here. As you spelled out in your Lancaster House speech, correctly in our view, we live in pre-war times, and Britain faces an ominous because the 1930s would have been the last fourth turning, and that is about where we are right now. Now, Hitler rose to power we're well into the previous fourth turning started with the 29 stock collapse. Ours started with the 2008 collapse. So we're a little further into it than that. I think we are actually in the war. It's just that it's not kinetic. It's everything but. It's unrestricted warfare, as the Chinese generals call it. And it's the psyop, it's the financial, the psyop, the financial, it's the blue, gold, yellow strategy. That's cyber Skrilla sex. So the elite capture, the financial, the hacking, right, in cyberspace. They're hitting us everywhere, but in the kinetic space. Among the lunacy of pushing woke ideas around the use of, quote, gender neutral, close quote, pronouns, or allowing male soldiers to wear makeup or flowing locks on parades to accentuate their feminine side, we pick out the wickedness of a policy to dilute security vetting in order to boost representation of ethnic minorities. With Islamism and other extremism rampant, this is nothing short of dangerous madness. It's deliberate. It's part of the plan. Same thing going on here. It's I don't know about the we're not as far down the garden path as they are in terms of the Islamic extremism, but they dropped all the standards for the military now. Like, you don't even have to do the aptitude test anymore. And of course, you don't have to be physically fit. You just have to hate the West. That seems to be the only requirement. The cry for diversity has been utterly misunderstood within a military culture. What is to be sought above everything else is the delivery of fighting power in order to defeat the king's enemies, together with the greatness of uniformity and excellence and diversity of opinion. Nothing else matters. The memorial gates on Constitution Hill are an object lesson of the unforced unity of all their diversity of imperial and Commonwealth armies in defense of freedom. To remove Christianity from acts of remembrance is also a particular insult to our ancestors who fought and died to lead the world in ending slavery, and twice in the last century to save our islands from conquest by extreme regimes. Now, the ending slavery thing, yeah, that is a great point as well, because it was the British military who, by and large, smashed the Barbary pirate slave trade that was referenced in that video that I just showed a little while ago. That was the North African states. They were known as the Barbar states. And that was the first foreign war fought by the U.S. military as well. It was called the Battle of Tripoli, and it was entirely because they were taking so many damn white slaves. And when they started capturing Americans, well, the Americans sent John Adams' Navy over there and smashed the shit out of them. So good for them. Okay. The islands from conquest to extreme regimes. So no one should need to be reminded that this is a welcoming, inclusive, and basically Christian country. Our civic culture on 11th November is sacred, Christian, tolerant, and inclusive on our terms. The Russians, Iranians, and Chinese will be observing our descent into self-hatred and obsessing over diversity and inclusion with glee. Yes, that is the intent, and I think it all goes back to the Chinese in particular. As it says in the Mosaic Effect, they tend to use rogue states like Russia and like Iran in order to further their agenda of global dominance, which is kind of everything I've been saying, and it's right there in the Mosaic Effect, guys. So it's a pretty good read. Obsessing over diversity and inclusion with glee, these intolerable policies are forcing the British Armed Forces into moral disarmament, and it cannot stand. We call on you as Secretary of State for Defense immediately to cleanse our military of these poisonous ideas and to order a complete reset back to our core values of patriotism and unity that for generations made our armed forces the envy of the world. To preserve and deepen military culture, discipline, and efficiency, the Ministry of Defense should be exempted from the public sector equality duty as specified in the Equality Act of 2010. It's probably like a misread of the act. We are not civil servants, but fighting forces. Yours, Major General Julian Thompson, Lieutenant General. So these are all high-ranking guys. We got a major in there, but like Lieutenant General is the second highest rank in the military period. Major General just below that, and Brigadier General just below that. Colonel is just prior to Brigadier General. Like, these guys are way up there, very experienced, and they're putting their names to this. So good on the Brits. We're not there yet, though. Here's Jonathan Kay. He says a Danish newspaper has run a story about the unmarked graves social panic that Canada went through in 2021. It notes that more than 2.5 years later, no graves have been found. And of course, this is not in a language that I can read, but yeah, they are reporting on the psyop that is being inflicted on us. Histoire en masse grave ont e masse hysterie. So yeah, that sounds like the history on mass graves caused a mass hysteria, something like that. And there's Trudeau being all sad and stuff. And they haven't found a single shred of human remains anywhere. They're not even trying. It was all a big psyop. Maoist, in fact, traces its roots back to the Frankfurt School in Germany, aufheben their culture, destroy their culture. So they're rewriting our history, shaming us, making we'll stop believing in ourselves, we'll stop fighting for ourselves, and you know, they'll flood us with all kinds of people who hate us, and we'll just implode from within, and the Chinese will have us without firing a shot. Now, in terms of the people we're up against in our own country, I just want to remind everybody that this is the strength of character against which we are up right now. So life comes at you fast is the tweet. So here's your typical SJW type, progressive commie bastard. Here we go.
What is it about anime that attracts Nazis? In this case, it's literally the pedophilia angle. It's that anime has a ton of...
It's the pedophilia, he's saying. What is it that attracts Nazis? And he means right wingers, because that again is coming right from the Frankfurt School. They say anybody who stands up to the Marxist takeover, you just call them a Nazi. So here's this guy explaining why the so-called Nazis are all into this anime stuff. I don't know who the hell he's talking about, but it's the pedophilia angle. And as I'm always pointing out, this is how the evil mind works, right? It's all projection. So stay tuned.
Angle. It's that anime has a ton of lolly shit, and a ton of Nazis are hyper insecure in their masculinity, and they want like a trad wife or whatever, untainted by feminism, that they can control and manipulate because they have no other experiences. And anime is perfect for people with that kind of psychosis.
A few moments later.
You can see this is an example of the kind of structure that I'm referring to. Oh!
Okay, freeze that. Tighten up on that way. Vector in on that guy by the back wheel.
Zoom in right here on this spot.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that? What is that, Private Pile?
What is it about anime that attracts?
He's got a ton of anime porn, and it looks like some bestiality in there as well. So it's all projection, okay? When they call you a racist, that's because they're a racist. It's just absurd. And isn't this guy just typical? This is your typical progressive commie bastard. All right. And speaking of your typical progressive commie bastard, True North is reporting NDP MP Blake Desjardins and Trudeau's Minister of Employment, Randy Boissonnault, attack Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre over Alberta's new parental rights policies. Yeah, we can't have anybody protecting children in Canada. That's not going to fly for the communists. So here we go.
Danielle Smith is denying trans kids their basic human rights by denying their access to life-saving healthcare. It's not the role of politicians to tell doctors how to treat patients. Meanwhile, this leader of the Conservative Party remains shamefully silent on attacks on trans rights. The hate and prejudice of some should never override the fundamental rights of others. Will this government commit?
See, shame on you, hate and prejudice. That's what you're guilty of for trying to protect children.
To using the powers of the Canada Health Act to intervene in any denial of life-saving care for trans youth.
The Honourable Minister.
Warm, fuzzy video hiding daggers at my community in Alberta came out last week on social media. I have spent hours on the phone consoling people who are crying on the phone, asking how we can stand up for the rights of 2 LGBTQ people in Alberta. Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to work on this, and I have one message for Albertans and people across the country. Legal challenges notwithstanding, the one way we can stop this is to kill the bill before it gets to the legislature. So write to your UCP members, get fired up, mobilize, because kids' rights matter.
Yeah, okay, guys. It's you can't have them protecting children. And yeah, Freedom Warriors is saying listen to themselves. Yeah, it's galling, I know. But yeah, they're saving kids' lives here. That's what they're saying with the so-called gender affirming care. I've shown the pictures of the outcomes of those surgery on this program here before, and they are gruesome. They are I don't know what to tell you. It's the most heinous butchery I think that's ever been inflicted on children in definitely Canadian history and perhaps all of human history. So here's Canada. James Lindsay explains why the word groomer is so appropriate. So yeah, just keep those last few people we saw speaking in mind as James Lindsay explains.
That's why the word groomer is so appropriate, because when you have an adult coming down and breaking down the boundary of authority between adult and child, which is a boundary that gets blurry at the end of adolescence by nature, but it isn't blurry with adults and children, and it must be maintained even through the challenges of adolescence. You have a person breaking that down and then adding in the suggestion that maybe your parents won't understand. Maybe your parents aren't the people to go back to. And then they're using a blatant political lens through which to interpret the entire world. That's ideological grooming. We don't even have to get to the sexual side, which of course it opens the door for. How are you, just as the simplest, least accusatory way, how are you going to screen for sexual misfeasance if you can't even tell, if the whole game is to break down boundaries between the adult and the child? How are you going to screen for it? And so what do you expect is going to happen? The incentives are there. People are going to go into the profession. And the next thing you know, you're going to have, just like we see in the news finally now, not a year ago, I got grilled by the Washington Post. Where's the evidence that there's real grooming? I said, it's coming. And what do we see now? Story after story after story. Loudoun County, horrific. Same thing outside of Chicago, horrific. We're seeing it all over the country. Of course it is, because you have no screening mechanism. And that's the least of the worries. But that's why grooming is the right word. Ideological grooming is the right word for this practice. This doesn't belong in K through 12 schools.
No, it does not. And it's very reminiscent of Stalinism, right? I mean, that's what they did. They turned the kids against their own parents and made a hero of one kid who probably didn't really exist, who turned in his own parents for speaking ill of the regime. And that was heroic in the view of the Stalinist regime, and that's what we're living through. We're living through kind of next generation Stalinism right now, because the boomer generation who run our institutions right now are the same generational archetype as Stalin, and every 4 generations, that's when that generational archetype, that of the prophet, reaches peak institutional power, because there's only 4 generational archetypes. Regular watchers understand that, so I won't belabor the point. Here's White Rabbit Warrior again, and he's saying, this is how they manipulate data to hit you in the fields and minimize what's actually happening. Let's dive into it. Only the 2022 Canada population data was available based on the last census, so we'll have to use that. The CBC presenter posed the scenario to Danielle Smith. Quote, in 2023, only 985 people under the age of 18 had top surgery, removal of breast tissue, etc., out of a population of 40 million in Alberta. Okay, I'm going to show the clip here first, because you're going to want the context before I get into all of this. So,
bottom surgery is not legal for anyone under the age of 18. Only top surgery is. According to the data.
So he means double mastectomy. That's what he's talking about. The double mastectomy of healthy breasts from an adolescent girl.
Data we've seen nationally, only 985 people had top surgery in 2023 out of a population of 40 million people. It was only 22 people under
one is too many.
The age of 18 in Alberta in 2023. How many kids are you trying to manage with this process? It seems like it's a small enough number. It could be dealt with case by case with a medical practitioner rather than requiring big government intervention.
We believe that kids should not be going down a path where they're going to make irreversible decisions about their reproductive health until they're of an age and a maturity level where they're able to deal with the consequences of that. Most practitioners will say that age is about 16. That's why we're going to make sure that kids have access to cross-sex hormones as early as 16 with the input of their parents, their psychologist, and a doctor.
Now, I think that's sick. Okay, like she seems to be making some concessions here, and it's wrong.
Doctor, and then surgery not until age 18. These are really difficult conversations to have, and we just don't want any young children to feel like they've made a decision that is going to impact their ability to have children in the future prematurely. I think they need to have a maturity level to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah, 16. They're going to have now. A couple of things on that. Obviously, she doesn't understand the ideological grooming component of it. It's all the younger generation. It's all Gen Z. They have about a 20% rate of LGBT identification, whereas the boomer generation, for example, only has about a 2%, and that has remained consistent. So that is indicative of grooming, not of a legitimate civil rights movement. If it were a legitimate civil rights movement, then we should expect to see the highest rates in the older generations, because those people would have been suppressed and closeted for the longest period of time. But that's not what we see. We see it's all Gen Z. Yeah, and this idea that she's going to make a concession for 16-year-olds, I find to be just pretty disgusting. And here is, I don't think that she gets this. She doesn't quite fully understand what's happening, right? I think that overall, she seems to be pretty solid and making a lot of good decisions, but I don't think she really understands the war that we're in right now, this psychological warfare in particular. So here is some data about population census here from StatsCan that White Rabbit Warrior is also tweeting out. And okay, I'm just going to read the rest of his tweet here because it's quite good. So you saw the clip, and he's referring back to what the interviewer is saying there. He says, quote, in 2023, only 985 people under the age of 18 had top surgery, removal of breast tissue, etc., out of a population of 40 million. In Alberta, it was only 22 under the age of 18, close quote. This is an intentional manipulation using real numbers, but leaving key points out. Key point, does Canada have a population of 40 million? Sure. But how many are girls between the ages of 12 and 18? That's a significantly different number. Don't worry, I looked it up. 1,241,658 Canada-wide, 985 top surgeries. He further manipulates the numbers by comparing Albertan numbers of only 22 under the age of 18 out of 40 million. You see what he does? Okay, this is how they lie with statistics. They change the denominator. It's not 22 out of the total 40 million. It's 22 out of the number, what he's got here is between the ages of 12 and 18 in Alberta. Oh, and he goes on. Population of females between the ages of 12 to 18 in Alberta is 163,616, not 40 million. Yes, I also looked that up. Bear in mind that Alberta is arguably the most conservative valued province in all of Canada. Do you see the blatant data manipulation? Regardless of the fact that one is too many, I agree. It's pretty clear that this counter narrative is nothing but lies, manipulation, or at the least, twisting the truth so bad that it no longer resembles the truth whatsoever. Remember this, the next time you listen to the news, whether you like what they're saying or not, even numbers can lie coming out of the mouth of a propagandist, particularly when you have a narrative or a bias to push. Yes, exactly. Well done, our veteran brother, White Wabbit Warrior. And Cora saying, my letter of support to Danielle was sent last week. Wonderful. I am glad to hear that. Everybody should be out there supporting at least some kind of sanity in all this. She seems to be the only voice of sanity out there. Well, not the only, but I'll get to that. And Janet is saying, anyone that wants to have that surgery needs to see those pictures first. I agree. And that is why I went to a drag queen story hour with one of those pictures printed on a poster, and it drove the wokesters absolutely insane. And they were trying to get me thrown in jail and all kinds of stuff, calling me a child pornographer. And, and again, it's projection. I'm like, you're the ones that are sexualizing kids, for crying out loud. I'm just showing you where this leads. And if you're, if you lack the stomach to face the truth, then I think that just goes to show why Seneca said that all cruelty springs from weakness. And Colleen has asked me to share the link. Is that the one that we're looking at right now, or is that from the previous link? I'll drop a couple of links in there anyway. I got to get better at giving you guys all my references, but here you go. I'll drop that one in there. And that's off to the many platforms, but not Rumble. I'll give it to you guys too. I know you're still over there. You're not commenting a lot right now, but you guys are still with me. And here is the James Lindsay one, which may be the one that you're asking for, because he is pretty great as well. So here you go. It's going in the comments, all the platforms, and it's out there. All right. Moving on. Okay, so all this stuff about the saving lives. Here is the Epoch Times. Research shows gender reassignment treatments have no medical health benefits, National Pediatricians Group says. So this is data from the United States, but of course their data is always better than ours just because they have, a higher population and so on and so forth. So research shows, American College of Pediatricians issues its position after mental health in adolescents with gender dysphoria. A review, now again, like, do we give liposuction to anorexics? No, of course not. But nobody's getting rich off of that. The fact of the matter is they're making permanent medical patients out of these kids, and they got to stay on the drugs for life. So it's big bucks for big pharma. A review of more than 60 studies has concluded that, quote, there is no long-term evidence that mental health concerns are decreased or alleviated with, quote, a gender-affirming therapy, close quote, according to a national group of physicians. The American College of Pediatricians on Wednesday issued its position statement opposing the use of so-called gender-affirming medications such as puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, social transition, and surgery for youth who have a gender identity not congruent with their sex. I really think it all went downhill with the redefinition of, they changed it from gender identity disorder to, that was Canadian Dr. Ken Zucker from CAMH. He's probably the world's foremost expert on this, but I believe a boomer as well. So he changed he changed it from gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria, and it kind of softens the definition, and so that it's just a persistent discomfort with your gender, i.e. puberty. So they pathologized puberty, and now they're making permanent medical patients. And I just want to grab this real quick. Okay. It says, quote, we urge medical professionals and parents to affirm the truth about childhood gender dysphoria in the presence of harmful thoughts and address the underlying mental illness, adverse events, and family dysfunction, close quote, said Dr. Jane Anderson, lead author and vice president of ACPEDS, which is the American College of Pediatricians. The group found there is substantial evidence that transgender youth suffer from high rates of mental health problems. Quote, from this review of the literature, there is strong evidence that children and adolescents who identify as transgender have experienced significant psychological trauma leading to their gender dysphoria, close quote, ACPEDS concluded. Now, that has been in the literature for decades. I mean, I know this stuff. ACPED's position outlines the studies that have led a number of European countries, including Finland, Norway, and Sweden, to reverse their position and reject gender reassignment treatments in young people. And the UK did that as well. There's a huge lawsuit going against Tavistock right now. We're not doing it though, right? North America hasn't. The group, which has long opposed gender reassignment, and why is that? Probably CCP influence, I would say. The group, which has long opposed gender reassignment treatments, said it is, quote, very concerned that parents, along with healthcare and educational professionals who support the transgender transition of children and adolescents, are in fact contributing to an increased depression by appearing to validate the children that something is wrong with their body and biological sex, close quote. Yes, exactly. It's horribly abusive. Quote, the mental well-being of all adolescents is critical, both for them as individuals and for the health of the family and community, close quote, the authors wrote. Quote, therefore, the American College of Pediatricians urges parents that all healthcare professionals healthcare professionals promote and encourage prevention and treatment modalities that will assure optimal outcomes for those affected by sex, gender, identity, incongruence, along with all mental illnesses, close quote. Medical fact, ACPEDS also affirmed, quote, the medical fact that the sex of an individual is based upon biology and not upon thoughts or feelings, close quote. Duh. The so-called quote-unquote transition is not a change of sex or even a change of sexual gender identity, but rather only a change in sexual appearance or presentation. Quote, they added, they got the quotes mixed up there. Thus, transgender and transition are misleading and inaccurate terms, but are used in this document because of their unfortunate standard of use in the medical literature, close quote. Yeah, they're marketing terms. Supporters of gender reassignment treatments have argued that it saves lives by reducing suicide in youth suffering from gender dysphoria. The physician's report found that the rate of suicide attempts or completions was high among those who have received gender reassignment interventions. Quote, a study which purported to show lifetime suicidal ideation reduced in those who received puberty blockers actually found twice as many serious suicidal attempts in participants who received the blockers than those who just wished they had received them, close quote, according to ACPEDS. Position summary fact sheet, mental health of gender incongruent youth. The decision to transition during adolescence comes with, quote, lifelong consequences, including possible sterility and loss of sexual function, close quote. And there should be support for those seeking to detransition, the report said. Yeah, no kidding. The detransitioners get absolutely ostracized and thrown under the bus by the social justice warriors and the woke mob. Look no further than Chloe Cole for that one. She's a detransitioner who had a double mastectomy and is speaking about her. And you know, it's terrible what they did to her. And also we in Canada we have Lois Cardinal out in Alberta, an Indigenous youth who transitioned to female, and now they have all kinds of problems, and they're seeking MAID to escape this hell that's been inflicted on them. Intensive psychotherapy recommended. Reassuring gender dysphoric children to embrace their biological sex, as well as addressing mental illness and other adverse childhood events, is recommended to avoid harmful long-term consequences of gender-affirming treatments, the authors explained. Quote, therefore, the ACPEDS cannot condone the social affirmation, medical intervention, or surgical mutilation of children and adolescents identifying as transgender or gender nonconforming, close quote, they wrote. Quote, rather intensive psychotherapy for the individual and family to determine and hopefully treat the underlying etiology of their gender incongruence should be pursued. Yeah, that has been the approach historically. It wasn't until very recently, well, during the fourth turning, I guess, that we actually started adopting the gender affirming care model. I just want to search something up for you guys, because the American College of Pediatrics, I don't want you to confuse that with the actual pediatric society that governs these things. But they are, so it says here, like, this is the Wikipedia little snippet here, and it says the American College of Pediatricians is a socially conservative advocacy group of pediatricians and their healthcare professionals in the United States, founded in 2002. The group's primary focus is on advocating against abortion rights and against rights for gay, queer, and transgender people. Okay, whatever, Wikipedia. Like, that's a progressive propaganda machine. I hope everybody understands that. And I thought this was pretty funny because this is one of the first questions on Google. It says, is the American Academy of Pediatrics credible? And what they have from the Arc Times here, the snippet says, quote, American College of Pediatricians, close quote, does indeed sound legit, but they are not the 67,000 strong doctors that make up the American Academy of Pediatrics, a reputable group that advocates for keeping children alive and healthy with vaccines, masks in schools during pandemics, and that sort of thing. Oh, clown world, everybody. Like, you cannot make this stuff up, right? You just can't. So anyway, just so you're aware, there is a distinction to be made there, but I think these are probably the good guys. And yeah, all this stuff about, saving lives that they're pushing, the politicians are pushing. Here is an article. Now, this is from February 22nd, 2011. Long-term follow-up study of transsexual persons undergoing sex reassignment surgery, cohort study in Sweden. This is the one that I always go back to. And let's just check out this one graph. And here we have any cause of death, match sex on birth. So we have the male and female in the black and gray solid lines, respectively. Those are, that's the regular population if you just leave the kids alone. So here is the mortality curve. You can see it goes from like, they start dropping the mortality, or the survival rates, I guess, drop from 100% down to all the way down to about 70% on the y-axis here. And on the x-axis, time of follow-up is, it goes from 0 to 30 years. So here we have the people who didn't undergo the sex reassignment surgery in the solid lines, like I said, black and gray for male and female respectively. And then we have the dashed lines for those who did undergo the sex reassignment surgery in the dashed gray and dashed black for female and male respectively. And you notice what happens with the dashed lines. Once they get out to about the 10-year to 12-year mark, they start dropping off like flies. That's 10 to 12 years after follow-up of the sex reassignment surgery. 20 years, it's even worse. 30 years, it's even worse. So yeah, all this nonsense about how they're saving lives with this stuff is just that. It's just a propaganda narrative. It's a marketing campaign for Big Pharma. Here's Billboard Chris. He says, incredible news. Canadian Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has finally stated that children should not be given puberty blockers. Well, it took you long enough, Pierre. So here he is.
Do you support age restrictions for puberty blockers and hormone therapies for trans kids?
I think that Justin Trudeau is trying to divide and distract Canadians by spreading disinformation about the decisions that premiers and parents are making.
What do you think? What do you think? I want to know your position.
It's your own party policy. It's your own party policy. At party
I think we
convention.
should protect the rights of parents to make their own decisions.
What does it mean?
With regards to their children. And I believe that adults should have the freedom to make any decision they want about their bodies.
But minors, advanced
I think
surgeries and medical interventions for minors, as your own party members suggested.
medical interventions like what?
That is the language that your party
What medical
used.
interventions?
Well, you would have to ask your party members.
Now, I just want to say, I think they're actually holding his feet to the fire pretty good here, because it is the conservative, it is conservative policy to support this stuff. And Pierre Poilievre himself voted for Bill C-4 to jail any parent who tries to protect their child from this sexual butchery. Yeah, that was Bill C-4, and he knew what he was doing, because I'm the guy who called him to explain all this to him. I spent a half hour on the phone with him while I was his constituent during my last posting in Ottawa. I voted for him twice, but never again, not after this. He got in bed with Big Pharma, and he voted to put people in jail for trying to protect their kids from this stuff. So they're saying this is your party platform, like you guys supported this. So And I also asked him about this. I didn't get the recording. If you guys remember that episode where I was like, oh, those greaseball staffers of his keep going to grab your phone and your recording equipment, and they turn it off and turn down the volume and stuff like this. So I didn't actually get it on audio, but I asked him, why did you vote to do this? Why did you vote to put people in jail over this? And he tap dances, and he's doing his tap dance right now. He tap danced for me. He was saying, now, is there anybody in jail for that right now? And I was like, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, in accordance with Bill C4, with the text of the bill, is it legal to seek psychotherapy, talk therapy for your gender dysphoric child? And it is not legal. That is what's called conversion therapy now, according to the definition under Bill C4. So I'll let him finish.
Such as puberty blockers and hormone
for minors?
Yeah. Yes.
Irreversible? You're talking about irreversible.
I'd like to understand your position.
No, I want to be clear. I just want to be clear.
For minors.
Puberty blockers for minors?
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
I think that we should
He does agree with it. He did agree with
protect children and their ability to make adult decisions when they're adults.
So you think only adults should make? You said yes. Just to be clear, you said yes. Only adults should take puberty blockers.
I think we should protect children. Let them make adult decisions when they become adults.
So that's you are against puberty blockers for kids under the age of 18. Is that
yes.
Unclear? Okay. What about? Can I ask you about in Alberta?
By the way, I just want to make another comment on this. Justin Trudeau is again puffing out his chest, trying to divide Canadians and attack parents who are trying to protect their kids. He will, in the end, back down on this, just like he had to back down on his firearms policy. Just like he had to back down on bringing in medical assistance in dying for people suffering from mental illness. Just like he's backing down again and again and again, he will back down on this because he is not interested in protecting kids. He's interested in using this as a divisive wedge to distract from doubling housing costs. And
okay, yeah, Cindy, you're right. I should have stopped that several seconds ago. Now he's going into his talking points and blah, 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is it is part of his platform. They all 338 of them voted for Bill C4 to jail anybody who tries to prevent this harm from coming to their child. So, and Cindy's saying thank you. Yes, and Julie's putting out he changed the subject. He absolutely does. He's going to put it back on Trudeau every time. It's all a game to him. He's just a practiced and polished professional politician, a paper tiger, Pierre Poilievre. So it's all about winning for these guys. Okay, it doesn't matter what harms get inflicted in their absolutely power-driven wake, but that's what it's all about. It's just a means to power for these guys. And Pierre Poilievre is just jumping on the latest bandwagon. That's what it was. He's a political bellwether, but I do show him on here because he is an indication of in which direction the winds of change are blowing. So this is positive for us. They are blowing in the right direction. And Darlene is saying over the age of 25, not under. I agree wholeheartedly. Children and youth counts up to 25. They're still youths until they're 25. And the fact of the matter is that people take longer to grow up in more complex societies. They take longer to mature. It's not like, Interview with a Vampire where Brad Pitt owns a slave plantation by the time he's 18 or 20 or something like that. It's not like we're living in those times anymore. People just take a lot longer to grow up in more complex societies. So we should protect them from these life-altering decisions until after the age of 25. And they will lie with statistics on this as well. Like one of the tropes that goes around from these commie retards is, they'll show this one study that's out there that says, look, nobody regrets this thing. Nobody regrets it. And time and follow-up is something like 2 years or 5 years. It's not way out. It's not after a couple of decades of living this way. And the average age at the time they transitioned, the data from Canada, the average age is like 28.5, not frickin' 16, like Danielle Smith says they should start. So it's the sickest thing happening in Canada. Okay, here is the sign of hope right here. Maxime Bernier.
Oh boy, after being repeatedly faced with the same simple question from journalist Pierre Poilievre, the fake conservative-in-chief could no longer avoid answering the question. He paid lip service to the idea of banning puberty blockers for children. But remember that he voted with the Liberals on Bill C-4, which promotes the transition of children and criminalizes parents who want to help their kids accept their bodies. And now he says he's against the puberty blockers, which are the first medical step for transitioning. What is his true position? He has said nothing in the last 5 years to protect children from this kind of mutilations.
And I do want to point out that my read of the statistics is that once they go on the blockers, once they start on the hormone therapies, they don't go back. They always go all the way to surgery.
This should be an obvious position for any conservative. Will he walk the talk and introduce legislation to amend the criminal code to prohibit the use of puberty blockers for minors? No, we cannot trust these fake conservatives on any issue. For Pierre, it's all about polls and empty slogans, and if the polls change, he will change his position. He has no convictions. I said it 6 years ago. This party is morally and intellectually corrupt. We have another example today.
Yeah, I think we do. And Colleen is saying, still on the fence, my friend. I think that's with respect to PPC. And full disclosure, I am a card-carrying PPC member and a candidate, actually, for the next election. So that's where my biases lie, but they're there for a reason. It's about principles, not politics. It's really down to just basic principles at this point. It's unbelievable what's going on. And I also wanted to point out that puberty blockers is another marketing term that they use. It's Lupron that they give them, and that's a cancer drug that just happens to have the side effect of stalling puberty. So they're prescribing it off-label, as in the way that they were not allowed to prescribe ivermectin for COVID during the pandemic. Why? Profit incentive, pure and simple. Here is Veterans for Freedom, and they're saying, and most of that third are probably boomers. They're retweeting. Okay, so it says, this is a headline. It says, only a third of Canadians trust news media survey. So another sign of hope here, guys. Only a third of Canadians trust the news these days. And Veterans for Freedom is saying, and most of that third are probably boomers. Bye. Well done, Drew. Thanks for tuning in, bro. I'm glad that some of what I'm saying is at least compelling enough to point that out. Yeah, I think people are starting to get it. And here is Dodge Designer, and he says, mainstream media, X is dead. And you can see they got the headlines that they're tweeting here. Here's the media reports. Twitter is at death's door 1 year after Elon Musk take over. The year Twitter died, a special series from The Verge. How Twitter died in 2023 and why X may not be far behind. And the rest of the tweet here says, reality, X is the #1 app in the App Store, And here it is down below, what the reality is. And they've got X here, #1 overall, #1 top apps, #1 in news, #1 across the board in the App Store. And the media is telling you that it is dying. Just unbelievable. Okay, that brings us all the way up to the Veterans for Freedom website. Go to our website at veteransforfreedom.ca. You can subscribe to our newsletter by clicking subscribe here. Join Veterans for Freedom if you're a veteran by clicking join here. Support Veterans for Freedom by clicking support here. You'll get the option to donate to us directly to help with our operational costs, like my StreamYard account and the website, by clicking donate here. And you can support the fund by clicking support here. And everybody who donates gets a chance to vote on where the pool of funds goes every month. Chris Lysak is up on the board again, and he just got released. So even if this goes to just paying for a meal for him and his family, I'm not sure what his situation is with the, now that I think about it, with the legal bills and stuff like that, but he is out, and I would be more than happy to see those donations go to him, of course. Also, Kayla Pollock is a very worthy recipient as well. We're trying to cover the cost for her to do a full video coverage of her story of becoming a quadriplegic after taking the COVID-19 vaccine. just horrible. And Lisa Robinson is the Heartless Pickering city councillor who is being persecuted by her city council for standing up for her constituents, and she's been sanctioned 90 days wages, and she's a single mother, so that is extra painful for her. 3 days left to vote for everybody, guys. So get over there and cast your vote. Give your donation if you haven't already. I'm a subscriber, obviously, every month. So, and the Veterans Association Food Bank, you'll have 10%. You'll have the option to give 10% of your donation this month to the Veterans Association Food Bank. So all kinds of worthy causes up there. You can subscribe for a monthly donation by clicking one of the buttons here and signing up your credit card. If you don't want to use your credit card, please send your e-transfer to fund@veteransforfreedom.ca. That's fund@veterans4freedom.ca, preferably with the auto deposit enabled. But if you're not able to do that, please use the password fund for freedom. That's all caps fund, number 4, all caps freedom, and we'll make sure that that gets off to one of these worthy causes. All right, that brings us all the way back to my boy Marcus. What stands in the way becomes the way. Yeah, so you've got that challenge, you've got that boulder blocking your path, you just go right through it. Well, might not be the case for a boulder, but you go over it, whatever. It's a challenge. That's how you should view these things, and just go right at them, like I do with my not so great Chinese accent when they're calling this racist. It's very racist. You can't ask me that question because I told you in the email it's racist. That's Vincent Ke's response to Globalist News asking about him about all the help he got getting elected as an MPP in Ontario. So yeah, that's how you do that. That's how we beat these guys, because they're weak. They're weak people. They can't take it. Okay, so you just go right through it. You calling me a racist? Oh yeah, how do you like this? So and Cindy is saying, remember to vote for the V4F fund on the 15th of the month. Any donation amount helps. Yes, thank you, Cindy. Appreciate that. And Patricia says, have a good night, everyone. Sorry I was so late. No problem. You got your push-ups in there, Patricia. I appreciate you being here. Darlene says, great live, Jeff. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, folks. Gives us the triple hearts. Hearts right back at you. Thanks for tuning in from New Brunswick. Colleen says, no need to apologize, Patricia. Life happens along with the push-ups. Yeah, that's sure. That is for sure. Man, I haven't stopped shoveling in a long time. So that has been happening lately. And Cindy says, thanks, Jeff. Hearts, as always. Have a great evening, everyone. Smiley face and victory. Right back at you, Cindy. Thanks for always being with us. And Brian says, great show, Jeff. Hearts, you all stay strong. Thank you, Hearts, Lion, Canada flag, flex. Awesome. I was just saying, awesome live, Jeff. Thank you very much. Have a great night, all. Yes, thank you very much. And colleagues say, thanks, Jeff. Another not surprising, excellent show. Take care, everyone. Well, thank you, because Dacey kind of bailed on me at the last minute, so I kind of pulled it all together in about an hour. But you know, I'm just always saving stuff as I go through my own social media and track everything that's going on. So, and Cora is asking, thanks again, Jeff. Are you on at the same new time tomorrow? I'm back to the noon Eastern time tomorrow, and I have Paul Westhaver lined up for that. Paul is a hard fighting freedom fighter who has been behind the scenes in all this for quite a while, but he's done more FOIPOPs, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act in Nova Scotia than anybody else. And he's uncovered some very disturbing things with respect to Dr. Strang's callous, cruel response to the COVID crisis, so-called. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Paul about that. And Rob is saying, have a great night, everyone. Yes, a great night, everyone. All right, that's it for me for tonight there, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you all. RJ Sawyer over on Rumble. I don't want to forget you guys about it on Rumble. Everybody should be on Rumble, really, anyway. But RJ is saying, thanks, Jeff. Good show. Thanks, brother. Thanks for being with me. And Pie Master was saying about PP. Anyone notice he looks like a train wreck? Yeah, you know what? I think he is a train wreck because he can't keep up with his own lies anymore. This stuff is starting to catch up to him, especially on this particular issue when it comes to the sterilization of Canadian children. So, you know, it's an incoherent position that he has, and the ideology is just going to end up eating itself in the end, I think. So looking forward to that. But as somebody pointed out there earlier, anybody is better than Trudeau. So, you know, I'll take whatever I can get. And real progress is incremental. I understand that. All right. So, like I said, that's it for me for tonight, guys. Till next time, stay frosty and stay safe out there.
Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs.